Bryce?
Jeff?
Bryce?
Jeff, are you there? Jeff?
Bryce?
Come in, Jeff.
Have you... We've done a podcast before, haven't we, Bryce? Have we done the Rage Select podcast before?
Once or twice, yeah.
Okay, because I know that we did this bizarre briefing back in the old days, but I was like, this time it's my podcast. So welcome everybody back to the Rage Select podcast right here on Rage Select. I'm Jeff.
I'm Bryce Castillo.
And wow, what a great week. It's E3, it's not E3, but it is E3, but it's not E3.
It's like almost E3. But it's also hell season, right? Like, it's not just 1 week of things. It's this 4-month affair that Jeff Keighley insists that we do.
I'm for it. I think that E3, because in a normal E3 week, I would have to watch all the conferences all day, every day. And then after the conferences, I would have to stop and record 1 2-hour podcast for every conference that happened. And I'm like, now I could just stretch this whole thing out and have content for months instead of just having 1 week worth of content. So,
but there's got to be a middle ground between, 4 days and 4 months. There's got to be. It's too much.
Bryce,
it puts us in a weird position, like the Sony thing we're about to talk about. Like, this show is way different when it's attached to an E3 season.
I agree. I don't know. I'm failing to see the downside of lots and lots of awesome video game reveals. I feel like you're like, stop. I'm too excited. You gotta give me time to stop being excited. I don't know.
It's just too tantric. I think it's great that there's a lot of stuff, but it's just too. Just like, we don't have any dates still. We don't have any pricing on a bunch of this stuff. Like, let's just go.
This is Sting's E3. That's the out of this. Yes. So, all right. Well, we have a metric boatload of stuff to talk about. But usually, before we start, this is the time when I like to say a few other things. Usually, so that I can make an enticing thumbnail that nobody clicks on, because this is, it's whatever. It's YouTube. So I just watched all of season 3 of Baki yesterday, and I'm not sure why I'm continuing to watch Baki, but it's pretty awesome. This is just like meaty anime men beating the meaty anime shit out of each other, like 40 episodes of it, and they all look weird. They've all got these bubble heads, so...
I've seen like 2 or 3 episodes when the first season came out. It is astounding to hear that they are already on season 3, unless this was like already out in Japan and they're just translating it super fast. But it is not an exaggeration to describe it as meatheads destroying the shit out of other meatheads.
It's got that like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure level of like, well, I've trained for 100 years in the art of scratching people with my fingernails, and so now I have god tier acid fingernails that I'm going to scratch you with, and it's like, aha, but you didn't know that I have spent 200 years training my skin to be impervious to very much fingernails. And it's so stupid that I love it. I just sit there and marathon it, and I can't get enough of it. But yeah, they split the first part was split into 2 parts. So it was like, instead of 13 episodes, Netflix put out like 6. And then 6 months later put out like the other 7. But this one is all 13 for what they're calling like chapter 3. I don't know, if you want to watch some beefy anime dudes punch other beefy anime dudes and talk about how their beef is better than the beef of the other beef, Baki's got you covered.
Baki.
Yeah. How about you, Bryce? Have you been doing anything interesting recently? Have you watched anything, listened to anything?
I just actually listening to stuff. I actually really enjoyed the new Lady Gaga album, Chromatica. I think that's really solid. It's all like house music inspired, so there's not really like any ballads or slow songs on there.
Okay.
And I don't know, it's cool. It's cool to see, one of the top pop artists do an album that is all like specifically electronic dance music, like not like pop music, which is inspired by dance music a lot, but like actual house music, actual dance producers making tracks. I think it's pretty cool, and it's a lot about like the whole subtext of the album is about trauma and dealing with pain. So it also feels personal because a lot of times dance music can feel maybe a little hollow or a little empty. But I think it's a good mix there. So I don't know. Do you like any Lady Gaga stuff?
I do. I've told the story before that I once, every so often when I was in art school, I would get on a project and I would put music on to listen to, and instead of listening to an album, I would listen to one song on repeat. And I remember I had to draw this like deconstruction of the human body for a life drawing class, and it took like 6 or 7 hours. And I listened to Bad Romance on repeat for 7 hours because it just, it just kept me going the entire time. I don't know. I liked. It was Monster, that album that had Bad Romance and Alejandro.
Fame Monster, yeah.
Yeah, I liked that one. I didn't really continue though. But I don't know. I've been trying to listen to more music than podcasts recently because podcasts make me sad now, especially because all the ones I listen to are like, here's the state of the world and another reason for you to be scared and never leave your house. And I'm like, I didn't need more reasons.
But yeah, like I think if you really dug kind of that early stuff of hers, which was very dance oriented and kind of clubby, like I think it's really cool. And there are like legitimate names in terms of dance producers, like Axwell and Sebastian Ingrosso work on a few songs. Madion has got a song. Skrillex did like a really great song. It's really cool. It's really cool. Like I think the worst songs on this album beat out her past 2 albums. So
okay,
that's cool.
I'll have to give it a shot. Well, speaking of stuff that's really cool, we have finally gotten a chance to see the PlayStation 5. I got to tell you, I feel like for months now, ever since coronavirus and everything got delayed, that we've been waiting for, or I have personally been feeling like Microsoft did that whole gameplay reveal thing for the Xbox Series X, and it was like,
which was very short on gameplay in general.
Yeah. And I kind of missed the super slick, super produced E3 show. And I finally got it. I got it yesterday with this PlayStation 5 show. And not just that, but it didn't seem to have like it. I love the fact that this whole thing didn't have a host, that I didn't feel the need to have somebody come out and tell me like, next up. Even the state of plays that Sony does, they have this thing where it's like somebody's like, next, let's take a look at a brand new thing from your favorite guys over at Place. And I'm like, just show it.
The state of play, it mirrors the Nintendo Direct pretty directly with those state of plays. But this felt like Sony. Yeah, it felt like Sony's E3 conferences because over the past few years they have trended away from like the whole host sort of dynamic, right? I mean, you've seen the past few years where it's just, here's some live accompaniment maybe, or some music to go along with this trailer, or here are some props on stage because they know people just want to see the game and find out all the pertinent information. And if you're not going to share the pertinent information, then you better just show a bunch of games.
Yep. Now, before we get into here, the dumbest internet controversy has occurred. I've seen numerous places while looking up all the information for this week's podcast, a lot of people who are like, because there are some developers and some producers and some people talking about Sony, and I've seen this whole like weird, dumb, irrelevant conspiracy theory that's like, they were all CGI and nothing you say will change my mind. I know
all of the little developer like interstitials,
that all the developers those were all CGI models, and I'm like, well, first off, who cares, and second, who cares?
Some of them looked that way because it's a very easy way to light someone on a green screen when you're having everyone film their own thing remote. But that's crazy. That's ridiculous. No, It's just, it was on a webcam and they looked shitty. And even on this 1080 screen, you could see Jim Ryan was like super pixely, and that's all it was.
Yeah. Why would anybody spend the time? But inexplicably, we started with Grand Theft Auto 5, which
I know.
I feel like this is like the biggest troll. Like, if you weren't going to transition at the end to say, and here's Grand Theft Auto 6, because they had a very long trailer for Grand Theft Auto 5, and it had the story and the online, and you've played Grand Theft Auto 5 online, so you recognize probably more of this than I do.
Yeah, and that was the weirdest thing, right? Because there's always been talk of like, are they going to make any single player DLC for Grand Theft Auto 5? And so you see a lot of story bits and you see the main characters, but then like 2/3 of this is all about the GTA Online stuff, and so it's bizarre, right? I mean, they've already quote unquote enhanced and expanded GTA 5. It's called the PS4 and the PC version. So what more are they doing here? Is it just more optimizations? Is it just so that it doesn't take literally 20 minutes to load this game up?
I think it's so that they could put Grand Theft Auto Online out of a fifth time and make a lot of money on the new generation of consoles, because that's what this is all building up to, right? Was that Grand Theft Auto Online was going to be free to play on the PlayStation 5, and if you have
the PlayStation Plus.
Oh, if you have PlayStation Plus, okay, and if you have a PlayStation 4, you're going to get $1 million in online fun bucks every month for Grand Theft Auto 5, which I wonder if you don't log into Grand Theft Auto 5, does it just accumulate? Like, apparently the Grand Theft Auto Online isn't coming out until 2021, so am I going to get like 12 million plus however long is left in it? Math is hard. Like $18 million worth of Grand Theft Auto credits, and can I buy anything with that $18 million?
If it's like the other things, because they've done a lot of like Twitch giveaways, or like when the game was coming out and they were doing what they call it refunds because the game didn't work for the first few months. You would have to log in. There was no accumulating of stuff. They would have some kind of hard and fast dates. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a day of the month when it reset and you'd have to log back in. As far as what you could spend with $18 million, like that would get you going a bit. That would get you going. I mean, there's stuff in the game that costs dozens of millions of dollars, more. I mean, it's been a little while since I've played, but there are, if you want to spend a lot of money, there are super yachts and properties. There's a whole properties end game mechanic. But 18 would certainly get you started.
Can I get one of those flying DeLoreans? Can I buy a flying DeLorean for $18 million?
I don't know. I think it's more than that. I'd have to go look it up. I remember I bought. They have a flying jet bike that has like guns and stuff on it, and I had to really save up for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so that was, I guess, it was a very strange way to start the conference, like with the throwback. But then we got into what I guess what I didn't really expect. No, sorry, I'm getting my things out of whack. Start with Spider-Man, which is a great way to start. With this trailer for what is going to be essentially a standalone expansion to Spider-Man. There was a lot of confusion about this. Starring Miles Morales instead of Peter Parker as Spider-Man. And yeah, it appears also that there's going to be some level of enhancement done to the PS4 Spider-Man, and it's going to be re-released. But I saw Jason Schreier, who's generally pretty knowledgeable about this stuff, say that this was going to be kind of like that the Uncharted spin-off.
Lost Legacy.
Right. Yeah, there was going to be a standalone DLC. But then there was also going to be a version of this of the base Spider-Man game for the PS4 on the PS5 with a bunch of enhancements. So
interesting. I'm interested to see what they do with this, because we've seen not with just like Lost Legacy, but also there was that infamous spin-off game. I think it was First Light. Which might even be a more apt analogy here, because I think that takes place in the same game or in the same city that Second Son takes place in. So
yes,
or like Far Cry Primal or any of these spin-off games where they have an open world map and they do some treatment to it, because we see different parts of New York in this trailer here with like snow and stuff, and so I'm really curious to see whether they treat it like a small new SKU, or if it's in some way counted as like a DLC for Spider-Man, because they had a season of DLC for Marvel Spider-Man, but because like I have it on the PS4, I have it digitally on the PS4, and one thing we didn't really get any talk of in this conference is about services or compatibility, purchasing, things like that. I would love it if my digital copy of Grand Theft Auto 5 comes to the PlayStation 5. I would love it if my Marvel Spider-Man comes to the PlayStation 5 with the enhancements.
I'd be willing to bet, just from the way that I've seen this stuff work out in the past, that there's probably going to be a standalone version for both, and then a like game of the year all in $60 version for the PS5 that has the base game and this all together. I don't know. But whatever it is, I mean, I don't know. Who could be mad? Who could be mad about more Spider-Man? That game was great. Like it'll be interesting though. I don't really recognize, when I looked at the trailer, I don't really recognize a lot of the, like, I don't know who the bad guys are here. And I'm not super familiar outside of Into the Spider-Verse with Miles Morales. Like, I never read the comics that had him in it. So I don't know who these purple cyber guys are that keep showing up during the trailer. Because we gotta, I don't know if Miles has his own rogues gallery. I mean, I know that Prowler, like my friend Michael is super into Miles Morales Spider-Man, so he's told me a lot about it. But I don't know if he has his own rogues gallery set,
like villains and rivals and all.
Because they did most of the top tier villains in Spider-Man. We did all basically the Sinister Six. So I don't know.
I don't know. Well, I guess we'll just have to. I know next to nothing about comic book personnel, so but it's cool. Miles Morales is like a cool character in the PlayStation 4 game. So yeah, this is exciting.
Yep. And coming out like it seems with the launch of the system. So it's because it's holiday 2020. So from there we got Gran Turismo. Bryce, are you a car guy? Do you do car games?
Not the simulation games. I like Horizon, Forza Horizon, right, where it's kind of arcadey, kind of checklisty. I like the Need for Speed games, or the Burnout games where it's really arcadey and you're drifting everywhere. So Gran Turismo is not my cup of tea, but you always have to have car porn. Mm-hmm. You can't not have car porn with the new box. So, and it looks, hey, Jeff, they made pretty looking cars.
Yeah, I tried to tell. I got when I was watching this live with the folks from Rage Select, there was kind of a deflation of just like, and I was like, listen, the people that love these games, they love them so much. You got to put them out. It's gonna be fine. This is gonna be over in a few minutes. The other thing that's a little striking,
and to really like show that like, hey, this game is running and it's probably close to being done and it's not going to take forever to come out. Like, I think that there's a reputation element to showing this first and being really upfront and like spending like a minute and a half just showing cockpit gameplay, just so people know like it's not just a cinematic, like we've got this game about ready to go.
We made the outsides and the insides of the cars this time. Yeah, the one thing that did strike me is that in the past, I mean, I remember when the first Gran Turismo, God, it was came out, and it was like the best looking game I'd ever seen in my life. And I think it's interesting to look at these and say, this looks good, but it's not. It's barely even the best looking thing that I saw at this conference. So, but yep, great.
It's like a hyper reality limit, right? Like, it's only gonna look so realistic, right? Like, you have to be able to show, to impress someone with realistic looking things, you either have to, like, at this point, ramp up the scale of it, so you're seeing all of these cars and they're all interacting in a certain way, or you have to find some level of fidelity that will astound people. And like, we have high resolution textures and we've got all these shaders and ray tracing and all the graphical technology in the world you need. So how do you, I'm not saying that we've hit like real life parity, but we're getting there. And so what's the next step for these simulation looking games?
Yeah, I don't know. What I do know is that I'm so happy that I forgot how much I love Ratchet and Clank.
You're a Ratchet and Clank guy.
I love them. I looked it up the other day. There were 6 Ratchet and Clank games on the PlayStation 3. And like All For One, I think might have been more multiplayer focused, but there were 6 Ratchet and Clank games on the PS3 and there was 1 on the PS4. And not anymore, or well, I guess there's 1 on the PS5.
Still
so
no.
if they make only this one. But yeah, so new Ratchet and Clank looks great. The thing that kind of was, I think, front and center was this whole trailer has them going through all these different portals into different places. And one of the big questions that I think me and a lot of people are having is this using that super fast SSD tech that the PS5 has in order to kind of hot load these areas in as you're jumping through the portals? Because that would be very...
And it looks like the answer is yes to that, right? It looks like there are gameplay moments within each of these little segments. I mean, there's no HUD that we're seeing, but it certainly seems like you wouldn't show this sort of action in the over-the-shoulder way unless there was some amount of interactivity to it.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I could definitely think of ideas about how programmers could hide that sort of transition and cheat it. But I think that my biggest question is going to be if there's going to be a version of this on the PS4 or if it's going to be only on the PS5. I think that would be pretty telling. But I don't think anything after GTA 5 was shown in this conference will be cross. Certainly not the first party stuff. Will not be cross gen in that way. Yes.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I keep forgetting that Insomniac made Spider-Man. So
oh yeah,
and Ratchet. So they're doing Spider-Man Miles Morales and Ratchet and Clank: A Rift Apart, I guess, at the same time. But this one actually had some gameplay attached to it as well. We saw a very brief kind of gameplay segment of this kind of interesting mechanic of pulling through these portals to different areas. And being the obsessive compulsive wackadoo that I am, I actually went and watched some of these and saw that there seemed like there were some of these transitions where the area that they transitioned to, at first blush, it almost looks like they're just kind of pulling to another part of the area. And when I looked at it a little more closely, it seemed like the place that they went to was a different area. Like it had different NPCs or different, I mean, it was like the same architecture, but that the things that were inside of it were different than they were before.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know.
I wonder if that's like pre-cooked, because they don't seem like the player is controlling where those portal pools spawn at. So I wonder if that's a curated thing of like, okay, this one will like, because otherwise, like, it would make sense for like the enemies and the NPCs to be in the same spot, but they have this whole dimension rift thing going on, so maybe that's how they justify it.
Yeah. I don't know. We also saw some crazy weapons. The sprinkler that grows plants that then grab the enemies, and these shatter bombs, and a bunch of other stuff. Ratchet Clank. Oh my god, it's so fun. I so hope that there's like 8 on the PlayStation 5. But then the other thing that I saw is something that I was thinking about from the Microsoft conference, which is that I feel like a lot of people I've been saying for a while now that I think that people need to temper their expectations a little bit, because this is a good-looking game. It's not, say, like a huge quantum leap above what we've seen before, except that there are some places where you can see the particle effects, the smoke effects, the number of particles on screen, the lighting and stuff like that definitely are a cut above what we're seeing on the current generation. So I think that this generation, again, is going to be more about, things like loading times, things like lighting, ray tracing, particle effects, smoke, and stuff like that, as opposed to looking at a PS5 game and going like, well, there's no way that could ever exist on a PlayStation 4, that it's going to look marginally better, but not like blowing off the top of your head better.
And I think in a world where we're looking at everything virtual anymore, we're looking at these conferences virtually, and so there's even less of an understanding of like what is a live gameplay demo, what is actual gameplay moments. having a game like this with this kind of portal sort of technology, where they're quick jumping through these different planets, I think that's a way that you really sell fast loading, because otherwise, like, you would never put a loading screen or a loading sequence in your demo in the first place. So showing things that I think anytime you could show anything that feels like there would have been a stopping point here, there would have been a load or an elevator or whatever. Showing those moments where that's all cut and you're just flowing in between states and in between areas, like I think that's how you sell it. And I think Ratchet and Clank is feels like one of those early generation games designed to show off the feature.
I can see that. It kind of reminds me of when they first showed off Mass Effect Andromeda, back when 4K displays were still a little pricey, and they were like, this looks great in 4K. You need to stop and go buy a 4K TV and then watch this trailer on a 4K TV, because if you're not really seeing what Mass Effect Andromeda could do. And it's like, I don't have the money for a 4K TV. That was when they were still like $900 for a shitty one. It was like, all right, stop it. Yeah, there's some of this stuff that gets to the point where it's hard to demo. Anyway, next up we had, I forgot the name of this thing. This is a Square Enix
Trial of Athia, I believe.
Is that what it is?
Something like that.
This reminded me a lot of it was like a weird tech demo that Square made like 10 years ago, where they were showing off one of their new engines. It's very...
Project Athia.
Okay.
Project Athia, that's it.
It looks cool. There's very little information here. It's just like a lady, and she's using magic and fighting monsters and jumping around on rocks and in forests and stuff. I'm happy for anything that Square wants to make that's not a remake or a sequel to a franchise I don't care about. So, yeah, go for it, Square.
Yeah. It looks neat. It's kind of got this sort of magic fantasy, but kind of a European sort of in touch with nature kind of magic system to it. So it looks fine. You know, this was all a cinematic demo, but if you wanted a dragon with a glowing belly, you're going to get one.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
Let's see. I think from there we got... this is a very strange one. This is a very weird... There were so many things going on in this game about where you're like a cat in a world of robots where there are no people. So is this like post like Terminator robot uprising where they killed off all the humans but they left all the cats alive?
It certainly seems that way. I think this is such a cute trailer where we're following this cat. He's got a little backpack through this robot city. I think one of the early graffitis even says "R.I.P. humans."
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's such a fun reveal. They don't reveal, like, they don't say anything, but once you get to like the game title and the little logo at the very end, you're like, oh yeah, you're gonna play as a cat. That seems fucking awesome.
Which is Stray, is the name of this game, and the cat looks really good. One of the things that I was, kvetching about my normal Jeff from Rage Select way is that I really hope that this generation they learn to do hair a little bit better, because I feel like that's the final frontier. I've seen faces that look almost human, but as soon as anything has hair that has to move around, it's like, oh, okay. But this cat looks really good. So it kind of reminded me of, did you ever read, I don't know why you would have, but did you read Sea of Rust by C. Robert Cargill?
No, I haven't, but I know a little bit about it.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that in some ways. And that is an awesome book, and everybody should read it. Let's see. From there, I think we just had some kind of like, we're just going to tell you things that are happening on this.
Features.
Yeah.
Ray tracing.
Yeah. Adaptive.
What do you think about the new controller? They had a little controller segment here.
I think it's... Okay. There's gonna be a version of it.
Buckle up, everybody.
Well, no, there's gonna be a version of it that's all black, and that's what I want, because the white one is gonna get all gross from having my sweaty, meaty hands all over it all day, every day. I don't generally buy my consumer electronics in the color white because they get dirty when you do that. That's why I like everything to be black, because it still gets dirty, but it's harder to see that it's dirty. Outside of that, I mean, I don't know. I've had to switch between all the different consoles over the years that or controllers that it just doesn't matter. Like after 5 minutes of a new controller, it's kind of just fades in the background and you're just playing a video game. I don't know. Does anything on here stand out to you? The weird tank top design that everybody points out.
I like the two-tone, and you see it across the controller and the new box and all. I think it looks neat. I hope that by having less lights on it, that maybe the battery life on it is better, more improved from the PS4. Because man, I don't know. The PS3, that thing would go for a long time, and the PS4 would not. So I don't know. I think it looks neat. It's very kind of interesting that they've just sort of gone for the single contour on the edge rather than the kind of bulbousy sort of shape that they've had before. I don't know. It's neat.
Yep, I think it'll be fine. They also have this. I mean, did you watch the thing where Mark Cerny droned on for like an hour and a half about the PS5?
Yeah, the tech specs GDC talk. He
really wanted you to know about the way that the sounds about the audio on the PlayStation 5, which is another thing that I feel like is going to have to happen in my house, and you can't. I mean, like you could tell me that it's got some kind of crazy audio, but it's not going to. I'm not going to be able to know what that is until I hear it. So, yeah. Let's see. From there. We got a Housemarque game. I was saying when we were watching this that I feel like E3 is always that time of year where you're like, I wonder what developer X that I used to love so much has been up to over the last 5 years. They haven't made a game. And Housemarque, this is a very strange trailer because the games that Housemarque makes, I would not have expected what we see here from that. Right. Because they generally made much smaller games in the past.
Yeah, I think after that dual joystick co-op game that they made, they came out and said like, hey, we're gonna focus a little less on the arcadey games and try and broaden the scope a little bit. And so, yeah, it's very interesting seeing them make a narrative game like this. It's like a Groundhog's Day science fiction alien planet sort of thing. But you know, anytime if you told me. You know, you see the Housemarque title at the start of this, and you see the female sort of lead character, and you think, okay, how tiny is she going to be on screen as like spaceships are blasting her from above?
Yeah,
but it looks cool.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, I'm a huge sucker for space, so if you give me space anything, I'm totally down. And yeah, I don't know.
I like horror. Like there's like a psychological horror element to this that you maybe wouldn't see in the Groundhog's Day sort of genre.
I don't know. You talk about dying and then coming back to life. My mind always goes to Dark Souls. So I was like, ooh, is this space Dark Souls? I want it.
Oh, that would be interesting. Especially with like kind of this bullet hell look. Yeah, you look at the way that the enemy bullets travel in the little gameplay bits here, and you're like, oh yeah, Housemarque arcade game.
So yeah, that's Returnal. Returnal. I'm gonna have Returnal. I'm gonna stumble around trying to remember that for a long time. Yeah. Yep.
Not a great name.
Yep.
Clever, I guess, but it's not great.
Let's see. Oh, right.
Oh, yeah, Sackboy.
Yes, Sackboy is back, and I couldn't be more.
Oh, what? Really?
I've tried so hard to get into Little Big Planet, and it just never clicked with me. But Sackboy's got a big adventure. There's a huge sack coming right at you, and it's full of adventure. It appears that this is.
Did you?
What's that?
Did you play? Oh gosh. Is it Unraveled? Someone the PlayStation Vita game that they brought over to the PS4
Tearaway
with the papercraft. Tearaway. God damn, I will never remember the name of it. Tearaway was really cute, and it feels a lot in this sort of like DIY look as the Little Big Planet stuff. Now, like there's a game, a new platforming game in that genre, Jeff. This is a good thing. This is a good thing.
Yeah, I don't know. What I found out in the PlayStation 3 era was that I don't want to make a game. I just want to play a game. And so there's a lot of games like Little Big Planet and Dreams and some of the other stuff out there that's like, do whatever you want to. And I'm like, I want to play a magically crafted story that you made. I don't want to make my own game.
But that's why I bring up Tearaway, because I think Tearaway is a great example of that.
Yeah, there's also something about Media Molecule that might be just a smidge too twee for Jeff in the long run. But I don't know. I'll give it a try. This also isn't my genre, but it looks good. I mean, it looks like what it is. The weird thing is that I feel like normally I would have seen in this trailer something about how make your own worlds. So I mean, there's no way that this game doesn't have some kind of builder engine attached to it, right? That's kind of Media Molecule's whole thing.
Well, this isn't Media Molecule. This is Sumo Digital making this.
Oh, okay. So is it possible that this is just straight up a third-person adventure game? Kind of.
Yeah, I think like a co-op character adventure game. Yeah, like there might be some customization, maybe because I mean they started the whole thing with the Sackboy and this little mascot tiger costume. So maybe their costumes are customizations, but I don't expect that there's any DIY element to this.
Okay. Well, that will be interesting. Let's see. Another game that's maybe not entirely in my wheelhouse, but this does look kind of interesting. It's kind of like Sony wants a piece of that Rocket League / Fortnite money. Is that what's going on here?
Yes. This is Destruction AllStars, I believe, or Demolition AllStars. Jeff, I don't get it. I get having a demolition derby game and you make it futuristic and all that, whatever, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Or like you have hero-based, class-based characters. Like, okay, cool. So, like Twisted Metal, everybody's got to have a different car. They all have different abilities. But like these people are like getting out of the cars for some reason, and they're dodging stuff on foot, but this is one too many things. This is one too many things, Jeff.
You're saying the mashups? There's too many mashups. It's
we don't need in a world where you're populating these cars with characters you're supposed to like and pick a favorite. You shouldn't have them. You shouldn't put the characters in the cars that blow up, and you also shouldn't have them on the ground where they can get run the fuck over. So I don't know what is going on.
Yeah, I mean the thing is that I'm not any good at I'm not good enough to play Rocket League. I'm not good enough to play Fortnite. I'm not really good enough to play online video games. So the idea of playing this, to me, I feel like it's just going to be an exercise and Jeff gets run over a whole bunch of times. So I'm like, I'm sure that somebody out there looks at this and they're like, great, wonderful, I can't wait to play it. But that person's not me. So I don't know.
I don't know. Hat.
Yeah. Let's see. What I am excited, though, for is this next one. This is... God, I wish I had a list of these in the order that they came out.
This is a Kina Bridge of Spirits from Ember Lab.
Okay, and I looked them up before, and it looks like... it kind of looks like their claim to fame before this was that they were making... Like, they made this CGI Majora's Mask, fan video, and then they did a bunch of professional CGI work on their YouTube channel before that. And I think it really shows because the art style in here is just super solid and super compelling.
A lot of cinematics here, but like I don't know that you can go wrong with developers wanting to go back to making character action adventure games like this. Like you're a girl and you're on a journey and you got little Pikmin. That's cool.
Yep. You got the little they look like the little what are the little soot balls in
Spirited Away.
Spirited Away. Yeah, except crossed with the fat monsters from Doctor Who that just smash them together.
they're black Furbies.
Yep. And I don't know. I mean, everything here, like, honestly, if you recut this trailer and told me it was the next Pixar movie, I would believe you. Just between the environments and the characters and the way that everything looks. It kind of reminds me of, you remember that PlayStation 3 game, Folklore? I don't know why it reminds me of that.
That's a weird pull because I think I see where, I think I kind of get like a very earthy sort of look. But I remember Folklore being very, very weird, very peculiar compared to this.
I don't know. I can't tell you why. But I don't know. Cute little dust monsters running around having fights, having adventures. One of the big things with a game like this is, I mean, if it's good, it'll be reviewed very well, right? Like, it could kind of go either way. It's just going to depend on like how compelling the story is and what kind of action there is. So,
and you need family stuff. You need stuff for the kids, and this seems like fun for the whole family sort of thing.
Yeah. Let's see. Bryce, do you want to bring us in on this one? From that sigh, I feel like you either have a lot to say in the yay direction or a lot to say in the nay direction on what looks like it's not Stardew Valley, Monster Prom mixed with Night in the Woods divided by being 17.
Anime. Yeah. Goodbye Volcano High, which what they showed looks like a 2D animated anime. Like I assume that this is going to be some sort of visual novel type of game, but we don't really see any of that. It's all these dinosaur human hybrids, and they're like teenagers. We don't learn too much other than the name of it is Goodbye Volcano High, and there's this one ominous shot of a glowing star in the sky and a comet in the logo. So I think it is I think it's a very funny on paper idea to make a coming of age story where it's also the extinction of your race.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just put that together. It didn't occur to me before. So this is like what if the dinosaurs were all moody teenagers and they knew that there was going to be a giant impact that extincted all of them? And like, when you're in high school, but you're going to die, what do you do with your last week on Earth? I was young Dilophosaurus and I had feelings about indie rock and
yes,
TikTok and it's funny. I feel like there was a lot of eye rolling from the folks that I was watching this with, but I, for one, am really happy to have, like, this is obviously not for Jeff from Rage Select. I'm much more into violence and ninjas and stuff. But you know what? There are some people out there in the world that this is going to be, like, the best game they've ever played, and it's going to speak to them. They're going to play it when they're 15, and they're going to have a million feelings about it. And you know what? I can't argue with that. You got to have your feelings when you're 15, and if you got a game that's like, you know, going to high school is a lot like when the dinosaurs went extinct, and you're like, I know, game. You really get me, game. So I don't know. It looks fine.
And I would be really interested to see. It looked like all they showed were cinematics just because of how it's animated and all. I would really love to see what this game looks like in action and what type of game it is, because if you tell me that the thing that what we watched is like, if any part of that is like 3D models and 3D rigs at all, I would be really surprised. It doesn't have that look, and so I don't know. Is it all hand animated? Is there a 3D element to it? It's impressive if it is, because I don't know that I've seen anything with that anime style and 3D characters that actually looks good.
You know what it looks like is just, I mean, I can see how it could be rigged up in something like, I mean, this is going back when I used to do stuff like this, but I could see that the character models are simple enough and like the lighting and stuff is simple enough that you could probably rig something like this up in like a Toon Boom or whatever they're using these days for that sort of animation. Like this one shot when they pull back and show this band seems like, yeah, I don't know. I could see it all being 2D animated. It'd be curious though, because I don't know. What's your take on Night in the Woods? Were you pro, anti, middle of the road?
I like Night in the Woods. The Night in the Woods gets bogged down in trying to be a game, but I think in general it's a cool story and a cool atmosphere.
Yeah, I actually would be more happy if this was more visual novel and less running around looking for the way to make the story go forward. So,
yeah.
Let's see. From there, what do we get? Oh, a new Oddworld. Well, no, not really.
Yes.
Sort of. Do you know the story for this? I actually watched Lord Lanning talk about this game.
I don't. I know. The Oddworld series is out of my reach. I've played a lot of the first one. That's Abe's Odyssey, right? With the side scrolling. I've seen that they've made like 3D character action games. I don't really know what the state of it is now. This looks like a side scrolling game.
It is. It is. So basically, the story is that back in the old days when Lorne Lanning and Company made the original Oddworld game, when it turned out to be kind of a surprise hit, they were given 9 months to make the sequel to it, which is just ridiculous.
Insane.
As far as development time goes. And they talk about how they basically killed themselves trying to get this game, trying to get the sequel, Abe's Exodus, out. But the thing is that Lorne Lanning had this whole idea for this much, much bigger, more expansive sequel to the original game. So when they made the new and tasty version, which was the retelling of the first game, they were able to get that sold well enough, and the publishing deal, something, I don't remember the exact specifics, but basically this is what Oddworld Soulstorm is, what Lorne Lanning wanted Exodus to be back in the old days, but they never had the time to do it. So
interesting.
Yeah, and it's got a lot more going on. I mean, at heart, it looks like it's side-scrolling Abe like before, but then there's a lot more. I don't know. I played Abe's Exodus a long time ago, and it seems like there's a lot more going on in here than in the original Abe's Exodus, which is good.
Yeah, and like with all my experience mostly comes from knowing a little bit about Abe's Odyssey, and so seeing a side-scrolling Abe's game in 3D or this 2.5D look, like, it seems really cool. It seems like they're making good use of the scale that you have to do 2.5D at, and you see a lot of little guys. I kind of wish there was a kind of wish we got some of that the little vocal shots.
Oh yeah.
But otherwise, like, it looks really neat. I definitely am going to try this.
Yeah, and I'm almost certain that this is not going to be exclusive to the PS5. I don't know. I don't believe that.
I don't know.
New and Tasty was, but in any case,
they list this as an indies on the PlayStation blog. So
okay,
probably.
Let's see. From there, we finally, after 2 years of waiting, got to see Ghostwire Tokyo. That was 2 years ago, right? At the Bethesda conference when, God, what is her name that I can never remember? The lady that the internet fell in love with a little like spooky, that then quit.
She quit like immediately after that show.
Yeah. But we finally have a chance to see this, and I'm really surprised that this is a first-person game. Like, I did not expect this to be a first-person action game, considering Shinji Mikami and all of the, Evil Within and Resident Evil 4 and what was the other, the Suda 51, Shadows of the Damned. Like, I just don't think that you see a lot of this style of horror game in first person, or even action horror games as much in first person as you do in third person. And it really,
well, compared and not, I guess, specifically horror action, right? I mean, there are plenty of amnesias out there where
that's true,
you're in first person and it's scary and you have to find a closet to hide in. I feel like I watched this trailer a couple of times and really don't get it. I think this is a very aesthetics first game. Is very cool. There's a lot of weird things between modern Tokyo and weird digital effects, but also like folklore demons and the schoolgirl with the CRT TV head. I don't know what this is. I'm not big on horror. I did not play The Evil Within, so that's already out of my wheelhouse. But I feel like if you asked me to describe this game after watching this, I could not.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because I got this sense while I was watching it, and it was very confusing to me. But like some of the first person segments, and I don't know if it's like the FOV or the way that it's captured, seemed like they were on rails. Like like a lot of it to me just looked like almost like a VR rail shooter where it's more about like what your hands are doing than it is about positioning or placement, because it seems like the person I mean, it could just
Not a
be
lot of traversal.
right. It could just be the way that they were filming it, but I feel like all of the shots of the character, they move a little bit, but not like a huge amount. Not like I would expect in like all the action shots seem to be. Then the main character shoots a blast at somebody. Then your character shoots a blast at somebody. Like less movement and more just kind of standing or moving slightly. I don't know. It's probably not that, but I just when I was watching it, I got this weird, like, is this on rails? It felt like that a little bit to me.
I think it is a lot of combat and action for a horror game, and so I don't know if maybe they are trying to indicate that it's not really going to be horror or suspenseful. It's going to be a lot of big action and colorful particle effects, rather than be something that scares you.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. Let's see. From there, we got the answer to that question of like, I wonder what those Super Brothers have been up to that I played their game 5 years ago. Or wait, they made Below too, right? I know they made Sword and Sorcery, or was Below Cappy?
No, Below was Cappy.
Okay. So apparently they've been working on this game, which is
Jett,
which is
Far Shore.
I'm not entirely sure what's going on in this trailer.
Yeah, what is this? Because it looks like I guess some sort of seed ship going off into the universe, but I don't know. I think the perspective that they show us is so bizarre. I don't know if this is a space exploration game, a planet exploration game, some sort of story-based thing, procedural. It's interesting to say the least, but very light on meat on this one.
I don't know. There's a lot of it where they show, I mean, what seems to be gameplay is like this kind of flying around across a big open world, but that's kind of all like from this very pulled back perspective, and I'm not entirely sure. I'm getting big flashbacks to the first time they showed me No Man's Sky, where I'm like, that's very pretty. What do you actually do in this game? I need you to tell me what I do in this game. And it's got to be more than just like discovery. Like, no, I need to know what I shoot or punch or something.
I think looking at the PlayStation blog a little bit, it's a linear narrative with a low-flying ship. So I think it's going to be kind of environmental exploration on a planet, without getting into some of the story stuff that they talk about.
All right.
Hey, Jeff, you want to talk about a fucking bizarre trailer?
You mean this? No, I actually really don't want to talk about this particular game because I've already seen it, and it's Destiny meets Dark Souls meets Too Human, and I don't care about it. This is
Godfall, and I had people. I was also live. I was tape delay live watching this also last night, and someone in the chat was telling me that this is a MOBA. That this is basically a behind the shoulder MOBA, which would explain why they don't have like why they're selling this in this fucking bizarre way. But I don't get this. I don't understand what is happening here.
You know, I know that there are people in this world who like Borderlands 3, but for me, Gearbox hasn't made a good game in a long time. Like before Borderlands 3, it was Battleborn, and before Battleborn, it was that Aliens, Colonial Marines, and Duke Nukem and all that stuff. Like, I have not been a big fan of the games that Gearbox has made in quite a while. And they showed this at the Game Awards. They showed a preview for it. And it just looks so generic. It just looks like one of these like, hey, don't you want to come play Destiny? And I'm like, no, I don't want to play regular Destiny. The last thing I want to play is like rip-off Destiny that's also a MOBA and also like space Dark Souls. It just doesn't, there's nothing in it that appeals to me no matter how many particle effects are coming off that shiny armor. So.
This is Gearbox Publishing for Counterplay, who don't like have a lot of games under their belt. It's just so weird. It's you watch it and all the cards are like, get cool armor and cool weapons. Like, it might as well have said, like, get 1,000,000 points in the video game. Like, what? And then it's playing like this like trap music beat for some reason, and it's all like fantasy guys. This is the thing that you do when you don't even have a lot of game in your game to sell.
Yeah, it's kind of like the card game where what it's doing is it's marketing to me something that I have no interest in. Like, I'm just uninterested in being the best person at the online thing where you beat your friends in the thing. Like, I don't play, what's that one with all the gods? Smite? I don't play Smite. I don't play Dota. I don't play League of Legends. I've tried for a month to get interested in Valorant, and I can't even bother to install it because I'm so uninterested in it. Like, this is just when you do the Venn diagram of like shit Jeff is interested in and what this game is, they're just two circles sitting next to each other. So again, I hope it's good for somebody, but no. Anyway, let's see. What's next? Oh, right. I wish I had the names of these things. I have prepared poorly for my podcast.
This is Solar Ash from Heart Machine.
Okay, and these are the people that made Hyperlight Drifter, and this looks a lot like 3D Hyperlight Drifter, or I don't know.
Yeah, it kind of has like Fury, Furi, or a little bit of the Sayonara Wild Hearts, big, bright, colorful anime 3D look. We don't see a lot here. I actually am a little ashamed to say I have not played Hyperlight Drifter, and I know it's great. Don't tell me it's great. I know it's great. Everybody knows that it's a great game that I haven't played. But this looks cool. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very aesthetics trailer. We see a little bit of roller skating, and then that's kind of it.
This one falls into the category of, there's like, some of these things that are like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And some of them that are like, that looks like a fun new video game that I would be interested in trying out. And I hope that I stopped playing Hyperlight Drifter because it got a little bit too punishing and I just wasn't having fun with it anymore. So I hope they've taken a little bit of that into consideration, or not. I mean, there's that audience out there for like every game needs to be so goddamn hard that I hate myself. So maybe that's for them. But I don't know. I mean, it looks really good. It looks very smooth. I would love to see more. A lot of this is just like, I want to see more. But I don't need to see more of Hitman 3. I will buy 100 copies right now. You don't even need to show me a trailer for it, but I appreciate being shown a trailer for it. I've been waiting for so long. I'm so happy.
Jeff, I saw they do this story trailer for Hitman 3, and I immediately thought, Jeff would love this, because this is all the lore stuff from this current trilogy that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Does this, as someone who knows more about the Hitman story than I think anyone else on the planet does this make sense, and is this good?
Yeah, it was funny because at word 3, when they were started at the beginning, and the person who's narrating, I was like, "Ooh, it's the Constant," and everybody was like, "The who?" And I'm like, "Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. You don't need it. You don't need it. I'll explain it to you some other time." No, it's good because
I just started playing. I got the first, like the prologue chapter of Hitman 2, the beach house one.
Hawke's Bay.
And they're telling me like, sorry,
Hawke's Bay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they're like, Hitman, we've got the secret client and the director and all this stuff. I'm like, what? Whatever. You don't need to know any of that stuff. But I just love that there's all of this stuff here that I'm completely blind to of the story of Hitman.
Everybody talks a lot about video games, and nobody in this world has given the Hitman franchise the respect it deserves, because they did a thing. People are like, oh, what's cool is how they don't tell you the story in Dark Souls, and you've got to like read the story through all the item descriptions. I'm like, you have to play every level of Hitman 8 times, and you'll want to play all those levels 8 times, but then you'll be like walking past 2 people talking, and they'll be like, hey, did you hear about blah 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 that committed suicide? And you're like, oh oh, that's the person I killed 4 missions ago. And you're like watching this whole world get knitted together and literally hearing people talk about the things that you did. It's so good. It's so. Did you not play the first season of Hitman?
Oh yes, I did.
Okay,
I almost finished it, but like I don't know. This is the shadow client is giving us orders, and the directorate is really in charge, but they're the bad guys, but we're on their side because someone wants to kill them. Whatever. Just who do I get to kill?
Well, whoever you get to kill, they're going to be at the top of a gigantic building in Dubai because we got to see like 40 seconds worth of footage, and it looks like Hitman. And I'm sure that there's somebody out there who's tweeted like, this just looks the same as Hitman 2. I don't see any graphical upgrades here. I don't even care. Like, you could just sell me one level a month for $20 for Hitman, and I would pay it every single month. Like,
yeah, they gave the January 2021 date for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
That seems to signal that they're going back to episodic for this, right? Would you think?
No, I mean,
How long was it since Hitman 2?
Let's see. I'm pretty sure that they might just be doing that thing that we see from time to time where they're going to put stuff out in the lull, right? It's like everybody gets their PlayStation 5 for Christmas. January comes, you've beaten all the games you got for Christmas over the break. You're looking for something new. Hey, that Hitman is out. Maybe I should. But
you think it comes out and all of the levels and stuff are in it day one, like with Hitman 2?
Yeah, I think so. I mean the episodic structure for Hitman 1 is, from everything I've read, was pretty notoriously like mandated by Square. So, and then they got mad because nobody bought it because it was episodic. Let's see. November 2018 was Hitman 2. So November. Wow.
Okay. So assuming you keep pretty much the same engine and you don't, what was really cool about Hitman 2 was that they upgraded the engine, and they also like would bring forward the Hitman 1 levels in that new engine.
Yep.
And I'm curious of if they do that with this, because a new console, digital credentials and ownership and stuff like this. When do you remember when they announced the first Hitman of this trilogy in this super vague way? Like, it's going to be this live service and it's going to be this whole hub of things. And like, it actually kind of was. And you now have this small trilogy of games that really could exist like as a hub with like live stuff going on. Mm-hmm. And just by the sheer fact that it like spans, partly with Square Enix, partly without, partly on the PS4 and partly on the PS5, on PC, and ownership everywhere. Like, if they had doubled down on that, I think you could have just had, Hitman as a service or something. Like I think about this with the new Final Fantasy VII remake. Is like, does it have to all be different discs? Can I just have a hub and I just buy the new thing in there and it's in one thing? Mm-hmm. I don't know what the benefit of this is necessarily, but I think this is specifically where it's chapter based. It has that episodic stuff. It has this live content stuff. Like, it really could work as, I don't know, some sort of services hub. And there would not be confusion over what you're getting, what's in it, where you get it, how you get it, all these different things.
Well, for Hitman, I think that one of the big advantages to doing that whole Hitman 2 thing where they put everything under the same umbrella is that then the challenges and the escalations and the mission packs and stuff could span all of the levels from Hitman 1 all the way through to Hitman 2, including DLC, because it was all under this one package. So if you're going to have an escalation, it could be in one of the Hitman 1 levels as opposed to having to, go to IO's website, see that there's something in Hitman 1, re-download and load up Hitman 1, and then because the way that game downloads is it downloads every level individually. It's like you download the launcher and then you have to download each individual level as DLC because that's how it was released. I think it's better to put it all under one. I'm almost certain that what will happen is they'll just update that launcher for Hitman 3, because I bet that Hitman 3 is going to be on the previous consoles as well, and that launcher for Hitman 2 is just going to get updated and you're going to be able to buy Hitman 3 for that. Anyway, Hitman.
That would be smart.
I love it.
That would be smart.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to roll a little faster here because we're already over time. Astrobot is coming. They're pulling I was gonna say they're pulling a Super Lucky's Tale, where they're taking a VR game and then making it into just like a third-person action game. I would assume. There's no mention of VR.
My understanding is that this is a different game from the previous Astro game that they made for PlayStation 4, and that one of the stories that I think even you shared earlier is that this is going to be a preload sort of free game on the PS5.
Yeah.
I think Video Game 24/7 or something posted that this is a preload game. It's mostly a tech demo-y sort of thing, which would be weird because like I think they should do the Super Lucky's Tale of that VR game and make a not VR version of that 3D platformer, because at least what I had heard is that that's a really great game, and I don't have a PlayStation VR and I can't play it.
Yeah, the first one was also free. I believe you got it with the Playroom or whatever for the VR Playroom. So I don't know.
Astrobot Rescue Mission is the VR one. That looks like that's maybe $10, but maybe it does come with the VR. And then the original Astrobot Playroom you got for free with the PlayStation camera, because it all used the camera.
Okay. It's been so long, and they threw like 8 different free things at the PSVR. Okay. I'm super psyched for this next one. This is Devil's...
Little Devil Inside.
Little Devil Inside. There it is. I was looking it up as you said it. It's funny. This whole thing has sold me just on charming aesthetics alone. The character models, the way that this trailer is cut together between this kind of like monster hunting character and this old man going about his day and pooping and stuff. Like it's... it kind of has some weird, I don't know, almost like Witcher, Shadow of the Colossus style fighting with all these monsters. And I'm not entirely sure why this guy is fighting all of these monsters, but it seems to have something to do with this old man at the beginning. And it just, I mean, this trailer made me laugh like out loud sitting in my house by myself 3 or 4 times. And it just looks so charming. I don't know. What do you think? Are you as charmed as I am? Less charmed? More charmed?
I think this is really interesting. I looked at kind of the stylistic, the aesthetic of it, and thought, okay, this is going to be another one of the like 4-hour little indie games that they always make for the new console. This would be our, what was the circus themed thing for the PlayStation 4? This would be that. It would just be a little trifle, but there are so many environments and situations that they show off that this feels larger than I would have thought it would be at first glance. And you're right. Like, it's super charming. Every shot looks really cool and like designed. I would like to know what this is, because this is really weird. This looks weird for looking really good, I guess.
Kind of cutesy Monster Hunter almost, but then with this strange Victorian vibe. And then also, we mentioned it before, I got really big like Tearaway vibes off of it, because it did kind of almost look like a papercraft world, the way that everything was.
The flat shading.
Yeah.
Look, yeah.
Let's see. From there, we got a trailer for NBA 2K21, I believe. Is that what?
That boy was sweaty, I'll tell you what.
Yep. I don't know anything about basketball outside of there was a lot of sweat on that character model.
Sweat's a very important part of basketball, Jeff.
I need to go play some, and then I'll find out for myself. But yeah, I have. This is like, I don't have anything to say about this. I don't know anything about basketball. At least it wasn't that
cross-gen game. It looks good.
Yeah, at least it wasn't that like horrible loot box roulette wheel like they had for the NBA 2K20 trailer. That was just, did you see that? That was just, the whole trailer was like, spin this wheel to get the prizes so you could open the loot box and get your key that you could buy. And it was like, it was gross.
Okay, weird.
I tell you what's also gross. That's bugs that are made out of food bugs. Or as some might call them, Bugsnax, for the makers of Octodad.
Jeff, did you love this?
I kind of.
Did you love this, Jeff?
I kind of did.
It looks so great.
I love Octodad Deadliest Catch because it's just so ridiculous and fun, and I've wondered what those guys are up to, and seeing these weird googly-eyed bug snack monsters that walk around and say what they are, like a Pokemon. And then there's some kind of weird thing about like this walrus that's like welcoming you to Bugsnax Island. And apparently when you eat the Bugsnax, it like turns your arms and legs into the snacks. And give it to me. This is my kind of whimsical bullshit right here.
I think this, like, the trailer is super cute if you haven't seen it. They have like an original song from Caro Caro Bonito, and it's equally cute, and it just sets the whole tone for this. But I don't know if this is meant to be Viva Pinata, if this is meant to be Pokemon, if this is meant to be Jack and Daxter. Like, this clearly wants to be something. And they present it as like some sort of monster raising thing, but then the shot at the end are like the monsters get all together and they combine into one evil thing. Like, makes me think this might just be kind of just a character action game, which would also be fine because this is adorable. But what is this game? What is this game, Jeff?
What I'm curious about is if there's any of that Octodad lineage in that they've got if it's one of those, like, you have to control your character in an awkward way, and so you end up with this really, because making your character's hands into strawberries, like, I don't know, it seems like you could be looking at a thing where it's one of those, it's whimsical, but then you've also got this trying to do something but through a very awkward control scheme when your hands are made out of hot dogs and you've got cinnamon slug hair. But I don't know. The thing is that these days, if you could charm me with a video game trailer, I'll check it out. I'll look at it. I don't care. I definitely want to see more. I mean, that's kind of the theme for this whole conference is like 85 to 90% of the things that they showed here. I just want to see more of them. Like, I'm intrigued, and I would love to see more. Like, even the stuff like the Sackboy or the car. Fortnite car thing. It's like, I'd like to just see 10 minutes of somebody playing that game, because that will instantly tell me yes or no. At this point, it's hard to really say. But
he got wieners for hands, Jeff.
That's true. Let's see. From there, what do we got? Oh, yes. I didn't really see this one coming, even though apparently the rumors were all out there all day, every day. Demon's Souls is getting remastered and being put on the PS5. It's funny because I think a lot of people were like, Jeff, aren't you excited? I'm like, I've beaten Demon's Souls 100 million times. Like, I know what happens in Demon's Souls. I'll probably play it again when it gets remastered, but I'm more of a new IP guy. I'm glad that a lot of people are going to get to play this that didn't have a PlayStation 3, because up until now, it's been very difficult. PS3 emulation is very hard to do. Getting copies of this on the PlayStation 3 was kind of a pain in the ass. So it'll be nice from an accessibility standpoint to give people the ability to play, the beginning part of the Souls franchise.
Where does very quickly, it's just elevator pitch. Where does Demon's Souls sit in relation to the Dark Souls games, Bloodborne? Is it connected? Is it the first game in that series? Is it a spiritual precursor? What? Because I'm clued out on the Souls games, Jeff. I don't know. I'm soulless.
It is it's the third thing. It is a spiritual precursor. It's basically, in a lot of ways, I like to think of Demon's Souls as like a dry run for Dark Souls. Like, if you go back and play Metal Gear 2 on the MSX, there's a lot of stuff in Metal Gear 2 that was then polished up and brought forward into Metal Gear Solid. And this is very similar. It does stand on its own. It's not like if you played Dark Souls, you've seen all this stuff before, but it's a whole different universe in the Dark Souls. But it does have a lot of different. There are concepts that were specific to Demon's Souls that were changed in Dark Souls. And basically, I don't know, it's a dry run. But like, Demon's Souls was aggressively difficult. Like, when you start the game at Demon's Souls, the first thing that happens is you die and you lose half your health because you're a ghost instead of a person. And then the first time you beat a boss, you come back to life and you get all your health back. And then, because the game is hard, you die almost immediately. But what Demon's Souls doesn't actually tell you is that every single time you die in Demon Souls when you're a full human, the game notches the difficulty up on you. And you would never know. Yeah, it's called world tendency, and it shifts from light to dark. So, like, you're like, hooray, I got all my health back. Now I have all my health. And then the first time that you get smacked around by the thing in the next area that you didn't see coming, the game gets harder. And if you bring yourself back to life and die in the game, you get harder. So
that seems like a thing you do before you invent this genre of uber hard games.
Yeah, I don't know. We played all the way back through Demon Souls on our Patreon, and it's actually easier if you kind of know what you're doing because you can farm healing items. But
I gotcha.
Yeah. But I don't know. And Blue Point is doing it, and they're really good at doing conversions. Let's see. From there, we got a big chunk of Deathloop that we'd heard about from Arcane. I believe also announced for the first time at Bethesda 2 years ago in the same one where they did Ghostwire. Or was that last year?
Is that right? I think that would have been last year, but I did not remember Deathloop at all. So this was kind of new. This was a reveal to me. This looks cool. I don't. Dishonored has that real like steampunky, dirty aesthetic sort of thing going on. I don't love that, and so seeing this kind of like mod inspired, I don't know, hedonistic resort. Is cool. I kind of dig this, and yeah, I don't know. This trailer leans very much on this like graphic design elements. This
kind of 70s grindhouse.
Yeah, a lot of 2D animation stuff in between the actual gameplay, and so I think that helps sell it as well. This is cool. I would like to know what the story is when you have two competing assassins, and if this is some sort of online co-op thing. Is this some sort of like a Souls thing where your enemies are coming in from online? Like, I don't know. This is cool.
I believe it's the latter. I believe that it to me it looks a lot like, from what I can suss out from the trailers that I've seen, it seems like it's Dishonored, except that you reset every time you die, and then that there's like an adversarial component of your friends can come in and try to kill you. The real question is, what is the incentive of the second player to kill you? But I don't know. At this point, I'm just like, I'm Arcane hasn't done me wrong yet. I even kind of liked Wolfenstein Youngblood, which I know a lot of people were, boo and down on. But between Dishonored and Youngblood, I really dig this, and Prey. I really dig this kind of what the vent crawling aesthetic, and I like all the powers and stuff. I also feel like I'm getting some like We Happy Few vibes in there as well, with the kind of the masks and the weird mod art style. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really interested in whatever Arcane does. So if they're going to give me something crazy, I'm going to play it. I don't know.
Apparently, that rival thing is kind of like Watch Dogs, where someone you can, if you would like to have it turned on, other people can invade and try to stop you within the game. So that's neat.
I wonder how that's going to work, though, because all the trailers have seemed like that second player is very integral to the story of the first player. So if you just have it turned off, is there going to be an AI version, or is it just going to be that character is totally gone?
I wonder, because like Watch Dogs didn't do it much, but this the Julianne character in this, your Juliana, your rival, seems important, but her whole thing, so it's all like about having this time loop, and she is meant to protect the loop. So I don't know that you need too much other than like she's just the one whose job it is to stop you, and you're going to beat her in the end.
Okay. Well, all right, Bryce, we've been recording forever. And I was going to say, let's do all the PlayStation, the first part, then we'll move on to the second part. But it's now been like 60% of a normal podcast, and we aren't even done with PlayStation yet. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the rest of PlayStation. And then, who knows, maybe nothing else. Maybe we'll talk about music. Maybe we'll talk about fashion. I can't say, but you better stick around. PlayStation 5. This is so. There's so many things. It's like a gaming.
Through.
It's true. Okay. So the next up on the hit parade. I wish this hadn't been leaked. This is one of those things where, like, I wish that I didn't look at video game news websites every week, because this was leaked like a month ago. And I kind of knew that it was going to be a thing. And so, 20 seconds in, it was like, that's Resident Evil. That's that new Resident Evil. I don't know. Do you keep up with, you don't keep up with the news probably as obsessively as I do, but had you seen this?
I had tried to not spend too much time talking about or looking at all the leaks and the vault of dates and all the ideas of what hell season of gaming is going to look like. So I did not believe it when someone in my chat said that this was the Resident Evil 8, because it kind of doesn't look like it, right? I get, even after Resident Evil 7, which is like its own kind of cool different thing, I had trouble believing that they would do that again. And so it seems like that's what they're doing for Resident Evil 8 Village.
Yep. So you actually got the big surprise. You actually were like, oh shit, this is Resident Evil. I think I've been so immersed in Capcom that even just the way that things looked, this looks to me like the Resident Evil, like the RE engine they've been using for 7 and 2 and 3. Everything has kind of like a sheen over it. Everything's like slightly shiny, but in a really gross kind of way. But yeah, this is Resident Evil Village, and I'm so happy. I've been waiting for this for a long time, because I loved that they took Resident Evil 7 in a different direction, and I think that the 2 and 3 remakes were great, but I've been a little bummed out because I wanted to see, where do you go from the end of 7, and apparently you go to Resident Evil 4 plus Bloodborne divided by werewolves.
Werewolves? We don't see any zombies or other really infected people other than the werewolf near the end of this trailer. It's cool. I like doing different things is like when Resident Evil shines. And so, like, yeah, let's change it up. Do new biome, new threats. Like, let's go. I will say this is look. I don't like to hold technicalities against things, but man, the beginning of this trailer looks fucking bad. Like real bad frame rate shit for something that is pre-rendered twice over. I'm just gonna say. Like,
I was gonna say that it wouldn't be E3 unless we had one bad technical audio problem over the course of it, and this was like 10 decibels lower than everything else that they showed.
It was really quiet, yes.
And what's so strange about it is that I know for a fact that the RE engine that they use for this has a super high frame rate, because all of the games have had at least a 60 FPS frame rate. And in Resident Evil 7, that was on VR, so it had to be able to go up to like 90 hertz. So I know that this engine is capable of more, and I'm wondering if this was just some kind of weird captured on a dev kit before, because I mean, this trailer is obviously edited together out of gameplay footage, but I don't see any way that the gameplay on better hardware could have a lower frame rate than it did on the PlayStation 4. Like, it doesn't look significantly different in the quality. I don't know.
And Sony came out ahead of this conference, or this video that they played ahead of time, saying like, hey, it's only going to be 1080 resolution, it's only going to be 30 frames a second, we're all working from home and we're trying our best. So it's not crazy to think that this very simple scene that they used at the beginning of this trailer when you're trying to get everyone's attention just ended up being like captured in a really bad way, or it's not optimized all the way yet or whatever. But come on, man, this is Resident Evil. I saw that. I thought this can't be Resident Evil because Resident Evil. This is too big of a deal to let it look like that. So
to screw up your trailer.
You're right.
Yeah. I will say that out of everything in here, I'm glad, one, to see the return of like weird, sexy Resident Evil. Like there was that whole thing in 5 with that lady that was just kind of Jessica rabbiting her way through Resident Evil 5 with Albert Wesker that was wearing that like super tight, slinky dress. And it's got what looks like a bunch of like vampire ladies or something going on in here. And then, I want to know what happened to Chris Redfield. Like wasn't he in Not a Hero, and he looked like a regular person, and now he looks like Beef Chris from RE5.
He definitely looks very beefy. He looks like Sylvester Stallone. Then again, like also way out of the loop with the Resident Evil lore. I don't know. There's a guy named Chris, and there's a guy named Leon, and Claire's somewhere in the mix. End of list.
Did you play RE7?
Briefly. It's scary, Jeff. The thing is that these games are scary.
Okay. you know, Bryce, there's been a whole thing that I've seen like 100 places on the internet of taking people who don't like scary things and then making them watch /play/listen to scary things. Maybe there's a series here of Bryce plays the scariest video games. We're just going to lock you to a chair and put on Five Nights at Freddy's, and then Resident Evil 7.
Orange thing with my eyelids. Yeah,
that'll work. Yeah. I don't know. But I'm just happy to get back to Ethan's story. I'm really curious to know how Ethan got from Louisiana to a European village.
Is it the same guy?
Yeah. At the end, Chris calls him Ethan. So it should be the same protagonist, or at least the indications to me are that it's the same protagonist from Resident Evil 7. So,
weird.
Yeah.
Maybe he joins New Stars. That's what they were, right? Stars?
No. Chris Redfield is a member of the Umbrella, Umbrella. He's not Stars anymore. It's like at the end.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I don't have any room for this.
All right.
Got it. No, I got it. Okay.
So Umbrella
and I cannot.
is immersive. They're now a private military. Okay. So
no.
It all actually takes place in the same continuity as original Resident Evil, which is really silly. But from there, I swear to God, I thought that we were looking at that this game was some kind of Death Stranding thing. Like when I first saw this new game, I was like, did you guys just make a Sony press conference with Hitman, Demon Souls, and Death Stranding? Are you just trying to make me sing these are a few of my favorite things from whichever movie that Sound of Music? Jeff,
I initially thought there's a VR game out there where you're like in a big city, urban populated area, and you're shooting hitmen or something, and it's like super fast paced and super technical. And I thought that was what this is, but then they kept adding new things, like the little girl and the cat but it's not a cat, it's a robot cat, but it's got a hologram cat, and then there's a satellite and a simulation and the moon. Oh yeah, and it's Inception also, just in the middle of it's Inception. But then the little girl's also a robot. She's the robot, so she doesn't need to breathe in space. Oh yeah, they go to space. So, and they land on the moon, which Jeff, what the fuck is this?
I don't know, but I love it. It checks all the boxes on my list of shit that Jeff likes. It's got space, it's got robots, it's got some kind of web that catches a satellite. I don't know what the hell. Cyber cats, the moon. I'm like, yeah, sure. Give me Pragmata. I don't know what it is, but I want to play it. I don't know if it's like an action game or if it's a walking simulator or if it's a dating tower defense game, but I like what I see. I mean, if it's Capcom... Okay, so there was a thing that I read on Twitter where like one of the people that worked on Dead Space was talking about something that was going to be announced during the Sony conference. I don't think this is that, but I don't know. There's very little information, but all the visuals that I'm seeing I'm a big fan of when video games do weird creative shit, and this is definitely some weird creative shit. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea what it is.
Say this being time for not until 2022. So like this game is probably in the first half of its development, not in the second half. So probably a lot of this changes. But I wonder if someone at Capcom said, we need to make our own Nier Automata. What is just the weirdest high-tech sci-fi simulation thing that you can come up with?
Yeah.
And we end up with a cat on the moon.
Yeah. I'm Mooncat. Go. Give it to me. Let's see. And then from there, what did we get? Oh, right. The thing... I think a lot of people were very, very excited about this. I really liked Horizon Zero Dawn. I didn't like it as much as some of the people that like truly love Horizon Zero Dawn, but Horizon Zero Dawn 2 is a thing. I don't know if this is like a foregone conclusion, if everybody knew that this was going to be happening. I only played through that once.
After how successful Horizon Zero Dawn was, especially as like a genre pivot for Guerrilla, I think there's no world that they would have foregone making a second Horizon, especially given apparently the ending of Horizon, which I don't know the specifics of. Definitely say like, okay, hey, new game's coming soon. You're gonna have a second one of these.
Yep. I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm in the same boat as you, Jeff. I think Horizon Zero Dawn's pretty fun, but I stopped playing it because it's not fun enough. But I think if this could be like an Uncharted 2 situation where if you say like, hey, we made this game that everyone likes a lot better, like I think I can be on board.
Okay. Yeah, I mean I plowed through it and it was good. I think somebody a lot of people there's a lot of people on the internet that are trying to figure out the ending to games before they happen, and I think that somebody kind of spoiled the twist, even though it wasn't a super well hidden twist about Horizon Zero Dawn and Aloy and her whole thing, but there's definitely more Horizon Zero Dawn. There's a bunch of underwater stuff, which seems pretty cool. But in general, everything that I'm seeing here, I mean, maybe there's like some huge implications for people that are way more familiar and played the DLC. But for me, it's like, it's more Horizon Zero Dawn. Sure, why not? Never a bad thing.
And it looks like it takes place. Well, we see shots of the Golden Gate Bridge. So I'm assuming this takes place it's called Forbidden West, right? I'm sure this takes place in California somewhere. Mm-hmm. So there's still going to be lots of urban areas that have been reclaimed by nature as well. This seems fine. Seems fine by me. I don't know.
Also, it's got Lance. What is his last name? Riddick. Yes, in it, just like straight up, he's in this game. So, yep. And then let's see. From there, we got a montage of a bunch of people talking about stuff. We finally got the big hardware reveal of what does the PlayStation 5 console look like. And I feel like the internet immediately went to their separate corners of, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And, oh my God, I can't wait. Let me buy this immediately. A lot of people have pointed out, I feel very justly, that it looks like a router. I do think it kind of looks like a router. Outside of being snarky, though, I think that you could definitely see... I've read some reports, and you can never tell whether this stuff is real or not, that there's... The PS5 development has run into some slight cooling issues with the CPU, and I think that the way that the shell kind of opens up, that you can see that there's probably a lot more airflow coming out of the side of this, or the top, I guess, if you have it mounted vertically. Why do all the consoles want to be, like, tall? I put them under my TV, not like to the side of my TV. I don't want tall consoles. I want to set them down on their side.
Well, look at the shot that we're looking at here, where it's the console standing vertically and it's right next to the new dual motion controller, whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't do this hero shot and have it look cool and big if it's the same height as the controller, you know?
True.
Like there's like a towering, there's a whole dissertation that can be written on the phallic imagery of this graphic that we're looking at right here. So I think that's a part of it, and also just helps sell those $40 vertical stands.
Yep.
I think it looks cool. It's I really do like the two-tone thing. I don't. They've got like a very specific, like no hard edges sort of look going on. No 90-degree angles allowed, which reminds me a lot of the PS3 and just the big George Foreman hump on it.
Yep.
But I dig it. I kind of wish that they had a price or a date attached to this, because then they would have opened up pre-orders, and I was expecting to pre-order my PlayStation 5 console last night, and everyone's playing the waiting game.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody. I've seen some kind of unofficial reports online that I think that Sony and Microsoft are in a game of chicken about price, that Microsoft wants to undercut whatever price Sony puts out. And so that they're waiting to announce the Series X pricing until Sony announces the PS5 pricing. And then I feel that Sony right now isn't feeling like they're in a huge hurry to announce the pricing anyway. But we did find out
like makes sense. Like that's what Sony did with the PlayStation 4. Like my understanding, it is not a well-kept secret that like the E3 announcement with the price for the PlayStation 4 was directly influenced by the Sony or by the Microsoft press conference hours before. I mean, you look at that slide in that presentation and the like really cheap lens flare and the text that doesn't match the rest of the presentation. Like clearly they decided it that day.
Yep. But we do know that you're going to have to pick between the PS5 that has an optical drive and the PS5 that does not have an optical drive, because Sony is going in the whole discless, or getting into the discless market. Let me ask you hypothetically, what would the price differential between those two be for you to go with discless over having a disc? Especially with the I mean, we know that it's barely even a terabyte. It's like 870 gigs or something like that on that solid state drive that they've got in there. So the idea of not having a disc, and it seems a little bit like a bigger deal with the PlayStation until we get to the point where we're expanding that SSD capability is there. That having the ability to load and unload games quickly would be big. So,
it's well, I guess to your initial question, what would the price differential have to be? Like, realistically, I don't expect the price difference to be more than $50. That's what Microsoft did with was it the Series X or the S?
I believe, yeah.
Yeah, they made a no disc version of one of the Xbox Ones, and it was about $50 difference. So realistically, I don't expect that to be any higher than that. I think about my PlayStation 4, and I mean, I have a small library of games on disc, but I have a lot of digital games that I've bought, old and new, right? Like I got Grand Theft Auto digitally right when it came out, but I also got Spider-Man digitally when it came out last year, or the year before. I don't know. And so, like, I have a big digital library. We have seen that digital library sales are going way up because of the COVID-19 phenomena right now. And I think people are more used to digital ownership, right? They're not clamoring to sell their used games as much. And I think saying we have a digital edition of our console works best when you compare it with the marketing of like, here's how we're going to handle digital ownership. Here are the things that are going to move forward. Here are the things that are not going to move forward. Right? Like if we're talking about Marvel Spider-Man. Like I own that game on the PlayStation already. I paid $60 for it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're remastering it, if they're making a deluxe edition, whatever. I would like to not pay for it again, or I would like to know what. I want to know what's going on, because right now we just know what the box looks like. And so I think there's a lot of unknowns beyond just pricing before I could say, yeah, give me a PlayStation 5 with no disc drive.
Yeah. I think it'll also be really interesting. It's a strange time in that, with the COVID lockdown that affected so much of GameStop, I feel like a lot of people's wanting to be able to trade in a physical disc or purchase a used game is going to be harder now that there are fewer GameStops, and especially during this time where people don't want to go physically get something, getting into that digital marketplace. I don't know. I still like digital, or I still like physical media. But for me, it's purely pragmatic in that I'm the guy that buys all the games. So when people want to borrow a game, I like to be able to hand them a disc, because I can't hand somebody a digital copy of Mortal Kombat if they want to play it, but I can loan Bloodborne to Jason, and then he'll never play it. Then I'll just buy it again digitally on my PlayStation 4. That's what happens. So,
and we're most primed for, that original Xbox One vision of, even if you buy a disc, everything is digital ownership, and you don't need the disc anymore. You're buying a license, even if we're delivering it to you on a disc. I think we are very primed and ready to do that. I'll say we are the most ready for it that we've ever been. I don't know if people still would be okay with that idea, right? I think it was such a touchy topic at the time. And now with Xbox Game Pass obviously being a huge part, smart delivery, and their cross-gen enhancements that they have laid out very directly and we understand very well. I think that's a really strong value proposition, and I can't tell if PlayStation not responding to that is either we're not ready to talk about it yet, well, we have a plan, we're not ready to talk about it yet, or we're not going to do it, and we're not going to talk about it because we're not going to do it. Because if you did it, if you were going to do this, if you were going to make it generous and move ownership forward, you would be out there saying that, and not, we believe in console generations. Like, cool. I don't want to buy GTA 5 for the 5th fucking time. Fuck.
Yeah, I was actually talking with Michael about how, in some ways, I really hope that this generation is another flip-flop where Sony's full of bravado from their successes in the PS4 era, and then the PS5 costs $750 and the Xbox Series X costs $400, and then it's like, because every time that Sony and Microsoft switch places, we get free stuff. Like, we get cool, like, they're like, come over here. Look at all the free cool stuff that we've got. And we're like, ooh, I do want that free cool stuff. But yeah, I don't know.
And with Game Pass, like, Microsoft is primed to attract people with that, right? Even if these boxes cost the exact same thing, like, we know Microsoft has said that they are committed to, like, making their first party stuff go to Game Pass day and date, and that's a huge price, for the value conscious person. That's money in the bank.
Yeah,
like, that math on that is not difficult. So come on, man, just talk it out. Please tell me what's going on.
Yeah, I think everybody at this point is like, please, Sony, tell me how much this thing is going to cost. What do you think? I mean, just let's go out on some big digital limbs here. What do you think? 600? Do you think it'll be more than 600? Less than 600? 500?
You can't do $599 again. You can't do that again.
You think they learned?
Well, that's a different discussion. But I think in my heart, think the disc version is $499. The disc-free version is $450.
Okay.
It's aggressive. It's aggressive, and those SSDs, which are like over spec of what is consumer right now, like, are expensive. But being first off the block and being cheaper than the other guy is like, those are the two big points, and I can see them eating that cost for a long time if that's what it takes.
I think it's really interesting, the idea that if they do a 500 450, if Microsoft then is trying to undercut them with a 450 Series X and a 400 diskless
Lockhart.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to have the new Xbox essentially be the same price point as the existing hardware, because that's what a Series X or a PS4 Pro is $400 right now, right?
Yes, but those are long in the tooth. Those prices will drop the day that we know the price of this console. It would have to be, yeah. Because like $450 is a PS4 Pro now, but that goes to $300 or something. Like, they really just jack that shit down, because Sony believes in console generations, and this one's over.
All right. Well, let's. And was that it? Was there more? Was that it? That was it.
That was it.
That was it. They showed the thing last. So, I mean, definitely just as an overall feelings, I really did enjoy this. I don't know. I might have complained a little bit in the while we were talking about it from game to game, but like. I'm a big fan. I feel like we got to see a lot of things that we knew existed but hadn't seen before, and then there was a lot of new stuff. Like, I knew that they were making a Hitman 3, and then they showed Hitman 3. I think that the Demon Souls Remastered really caught me off guard. I did not expect that at all. So did Ratchet and Clank. I just hadn't heard the name Ratchet and Clank in so long that it was just like, oh, right, I really love that franchise, and they've been ignoring it for like almost 5-6 years now. I don't know, what were your big highlights?
I think just almost the joke of Escape from or Goodbye Volcano High, the dinosaur game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that is so imaginative and so fun. The Bugsnax, it's hard to like have walked away from that Bugsnax trailer and not just smiled serenely from ear to ear. The little devil inside was like an interesting surprise in terms of like what I initially thought it would be, and then just how much more that trailer delivered.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. The big games are like whatever, Godfall, whatever, Ghostwire, Hitman 3. Like, and maybe it's just because I just played Hitman 2 like a week ago, but yes, man, Hitman 3, let's go. But it was overall, like, it was great to see gameplay stuff. That Microsoft thing that they had with their third-party games was, I don't know if you mentioned this on your podcast at the time, Jeff, but like did not have a lot of gameplay for a gameplay showcase.
Yeah, I think we talked about how I feel like that's been a trend that we've seen a lot in E3. Like, I feel like last E3, there were a lot of cut together trailers. There were a lot of like very controlled snippets. There was very little like, let's just watch somebody play this game for 5 minutes. That it's moving more and more towards like a very controlled experience, which is a shame because as I feel like, I mean, I guess I used to kind of think that this was something that was more specific to me, but I think it's more of a ubiquitous thing. Like, if you watch a game being played, you're like, oh, I know what kind of game that is. Like, I look at the HUD, I can look at the way that the character's moving, I can look at the way the camera's moving, and I can instantly know, okay, well, this is, third person, it's an action, there's a lock-on prompt, I can see what some items are over here, there's probably some upgrades, I can see a plus on that sword icon. You can get a lot of information just by watching somebody play a game, and that as time has gone on, it's become less and less of a thing, which in some ways I'm very sympathetic because I've heard so many stories about developers that have to crunch like crazy to get a playable build out for E3, which is a lot easier if you just have a very controlled vertical slice where, maybe everything on the left-hand side of the camera isn't even finished, but because the person controlling it is very much in control of it, you don't have to worry about that, as opposed to handing it to somebody and then having them tweet like, the whole left-hand side isn't done. This game is never going to come out. It's the worst. 0 out of 10. And everybody's like, boo. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, I tell you what, I had a whole other podcast here. Why don't we whip through some of these pretty quick? We'll see how many we can get through. We talked about the Spider-Man, the status of it as kind of a standalone title. We got the discless PS5. Control is coming on to the PS5 and the Series X. It looks like there's going to be kind of an enhanced version that also has all the DLC with it, which is interesting. Because I was seeing a lot of screenshots of Control with ray tracing on the new NVIDIA chips, so I'm pretty sure that it's going to be that. Plus, the frame rate on the PS4 and the Xbox One was a little kludgy. Did you play Control?
I have not, and that's mostly because I just haven't found the time for it. It looks totally up my alley, but I think Control is this is another example of like, I would love to know what forward ownership of Control means, right? Because if I can buy it on my PS4 right now and play it and start to play it, and then if I don't finish it by the time the PS5 comes out, could I Could we move that forward? Do they get enhancements, right? Like, this is a perfect example for this very popular game that has DLC, has this small ecosystem of additional content. Someone please make this clear. God, please. But I would like to play. You beat Control, right?
Oh yeah, it was my favorite game from last year, which was strange because a Hideo Kojima game came out and I was like, holy shit, this is my favorite game. Control was just everything that I wanted out of a video game. I don't know. I get the feeling that they're gonna try to make you buy it again. I don't think that the stuff is going to come through. I mean, I just think about the last generation, how many games got remastered. Like, the thing is that I guess it'd be a question of, like, because when the PS4 launched, that was right around the time that Black Flag came out. And there was that whole thing where if you had a PS3 disc of Black Flag, you could put it into your PS4 and it would just download the PS4 version of Black Flag. But then when you think about games that came out on the PS3 and they were out for a little while, and then like a year or two into the PS4 ecosystem, there was a remaster of that game. Like, there was never a question about whether you could put your PS3 disc. Like, I can't think of a single other game outside of Black Flag where you're able to put your PS3 disc into the PS4 and get the PS4 version of that PS3 game.
To the upgrade price.
Yeah.
That's true. And I think part of that is because they were very clear that the PS4 would not have backwards compatibility to the PS3, where both the PS5 and the Xbox Series One, they have said we're going to have not total, but very deep backwards compatibility, and Control is a game that I'm sure a lot of people own digitally.
Yeah.
I just think it would be very weird to say, like, okay, you're on the PS5, you own Control for the PS4, so we're going to download you the PS4 stuff instead of just giving you the PS5 stuff because you own the game, but you don't own the right name of the game.
Yeah,
I can see them do that, and I think that would just be really obtuse.
I'm trying to think, because the closest thing I can think of is the Xbox One's backwards compatibility to the 360, but that's literally playing 360 games on the Xbox One. And I was trying to think if there's any of those 360 games that ended up getting like a remaster that came out on the Xbox One, but I don't think I've ever heard of that situation before of taking into the only time that I can think of where it takes into consideration your ownership of a previous version of a game was there were things like on Steam, like a Skyrim Enhanced Edition. If you had the previous version, it would give you like $10 off or 15. Like, I think Dark Souls, when they came out the remastered, had like you get $15 off the $40 price tag if you own the previous version. But I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see. I don't get the impression that the companies are that nice. I get the impression they're going to want to buy it all over again.
I mean, smart delivery makes sense, but the fact that you call it smart delivery, capital S, capital D, and it's a trademark and all that stuff, like, it makes it seem like something that they want that Xbox would know Sony won't do. I don't know. They won't tell us anything. Please tell me something.
Yep. It's a good question. Let's see. Let me see how many of these things we have already talked about, and then how many are actually interesting. We actually had a whole bunch of IGN had the IGN Expo, which was part of the Summer of Gaming, where they showed off some other games. I didn't really find any of these to be supremely interesting. It was this Werewolf the Apocalypse, Earthblood, which was a kind of a cool trailer, but I didn't feel like I found out that much information about it.
Yeah, like this frozen time cinematic where, I don't know, some guy is walking around and time has stopped, and then wolves seem to descend upon him, but he's a werewolf, and I don't know. That seemed at least cool. I don't know, like, at least that gets me excited for a game. I don't know that there's a world where Alex Kidd in Miracle World Deluxe does fucking anything for me.
Yeah. Out of all of these, I mean, Mortal Shell was kind of a Souls-alike with some kind of hardcore, looks like Unreal Engine 5 or up-res Unreal Engine 4 stuff going on. There's also one trailer. They also had a whole thing where they presented a lot of these things, but I mean, you watch a developer talk for 10 minutes about a game that you're already kind of like, The Waylanders was one that I don't think showed very well, but this is actually made by a bunch of ex-Dragon Age and Pillars of Eternity devs. So, and it looks like a very basic party-based kind of old school RPG, which might be somewhat interesting. I don't know.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, my tabs are slowing down. Okay. There was an interesting. I don't know if you read this, but there was a person, William Stillwell, who works with Microsoft, was talking on a podcast about how he thinks that the SSD tech on the PS5 is impressive, but that third-party developers are probably going to find ways around it so that if you have a game on the PS5 and the Series X, that it will load. I don't know. His example for this is really strange because he says, so the ability of a game developer to look and say, okay, I'm building this game and I want to have seamless transition with no loading screens to the PS5, but I'm also going to want to sell on the Xbox. What am I going to do to manage that kind of thing? Like that will be the tricks and techniques. So I'm just making this up. Maybe there are elevators in the Xbox Series X version, not on the PS5 version. I don't know yet how they're going to address it, but they'll learn to address it and we'll figure out ways to work around it. I have to tell you that if I bought Mass Effect 1 on the PlayStation 3 and there were no elevators, and I bought it on the Xbox and there were elevators, I'd be like, fuck that Xbox version of that game that has all these load times in it.
This is one of those interesting things, right? Because there's a certain amount of truth to, like, developers have to make for the lowest common denominator when they're making multi-platform games. Mm-hmm. That's kind of why you saw the Xbox 360 kind of have its moment, because it was kind of the weaker of the two and slightly easier to develop for, but also that was the spec that they needed to hit. Where I think fidelity-wise, yes, there are more teraflops for the Series 1 than the PS5, I guess. But if we're talking about load speeds and load times, then that's fine. Then they'll just make a very short load screen. They'll say that it has to be at least 1 second on both of them. You're not going to see drastically different. You're not going to see different geometry of the levels just because the hard drives are different. Because if you're already making a multi-platform game, you're already going to make it for PC, which especially doesn't have this hard drive tech. So you're just going to build in load screens, and if it doesn't need them, then it'll be like that Spider-Man demo that they did a while ago, showing off the speeds. You'll load up the quick travel thing for a second, and then it'll go away.
See, what I'm really curious about, what really is fascinating to me, is the idea of this hard drive tech becoming like a 3D, like a required thing for some types of games moving forward. Because I feel like a lot of people turned off that Cerny talk because they were just like, oh, God, this is boring. I'm going to sleep. And I was just on the edge of my seat. It was like watching the Hitman trailer where he was talking about hot loading instead of preloading assets, being able to have a pipeline that was so fast that you could literally stream assets directly into where the player was going as they were moving the camera around. It was like, well, this could change the entire way that you develop a video game, but only if everyone is on board with doing this, if PC gamers are going to be upgrading their systems to have hard drives that are fast enough that they can do this. And the idea of the PS5 having it as a proprietary tech right now seems to indicate that eventually maybe, but that this is really going to advantage PS5 development. Because, I mean, no matter what you do, if you're streaming assets from a solid state drive directly into the scene, there's not going to be a way to hide that. There's not going to be a way to make an Xbox version of that without completely reworking the way that the programming is set up for the level. So, if in the Ratchet and Clank video, if those levels that they were warping to were being streamed directly out of the SSD into the program, there wouldn't be a way to make the Series X do the same thing without stopping and having a loading screen between going into the portal and coming out of the portal. So
sure. Though I think you look at that Ratchet and Clank thing, and even in that case, which is a first party game, they did have to go into this mini portal zone before, And even when they load it in, you could definitely see like some pop in of textures and things. Like I think it's very solvable, and I think for third party developers, this is not the end of elevators. But I think in general, having the baseline, even for the Xbox, being it's going to be a solid state drive of a certain speed, like I think that alone is going to help. And yeah, you'll see the first party games take more advantage of that. But you have to work for the lowest common denominator, and if it means that the hard drive speed becomes it, then you'll continue to see PC part makers make faster M2 drives. You'll see those requirements become more commonplace over the next 3 or 4 years, right? It'll take some time, but this is the next thing that we're doing. Like, it was RAM, it was graphics cards. Now you need to get a faster hard drive. Sorry about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if that'll be interesting to be the day when you look at the technical specs for a video game and it's specifically the hard drive is the first thing, where it used to be just graphics cards all down the line. So, all right, let's see. Faster, Jeff, faster. Let's see. No Man's Sky is getting crossplay between the PS4, the Xbox One, and the PC, which is good news for everybody because No Man's Sky is crazy. If you want to do some space stuff that's not No Man's Sky, right before we started recording, there was a leak on the Xbox homepage that Star Wars game that we've been hearing about is called Star Wars Squadrons. Yeah, and that on Monday we're going to be getting a trailer for it. The art for it very much makes it look like it's either Rebel Assault or X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, and I want X-Wing versus TIE Fighter because I'm an old school PC TIE Fighter guy, not a new fangled Rebel Assault guy. So give me that. Or no, Rogue Squadron, Rebel Assault. Nobody wants Rebel Assault. That was just a full motion video with a reticle on it. If your tastes for going into space are a little bit more esoteric, the Elite Dangerous fleet carriers are out there. Bryce, I highly recommend. I don't think that you actually read this article. This article is freaking amazing because the Elite Dangerous carriers are able to do like light speed jumps that are like 10 times higher than the ships. So what is happening right now is hundreds of Elite Dangerous players are grouping into flotillas to literally start jumping out and explore the world of Elite Dangerous, because only 0.042% of the 400 billion star systems in the actual game of Elite Dangerous have been visited. This article on Polygon literally talks about somebody embedding with one of the flotillas that is making jumps, and then we'll have to stop and have players go out and like mine for resources to continue doing their jumps further and further out into the Elite Dangerous universe to explore. It's so crazy.
The players of Elite Dangerous continue to prove that they are just the biggest psychos in gaming. This is really cool. This is cool. All right, sure, man.
Yeah, they're the biggest psychos in online space video games since EVE Online. Is
yes,
this is some EVE Online stuff. Let's see. If you're into space, you can also play Mass Effect. They've added a bunch of I had smoother transitions for all these, but I'm going super fast. EA has added a bunch more games to Steam. Last week they added like Need for Speed and Mirror's Edge and Dragon Age 2, and this week they've added Mass Effect 3, Mass Effect Andromeda, Battlefield 5, Battlefront 2 are all now on Steam, so you can play those on Steam without having to install Origin. I recommend Battlefront 2 for $20 because after like 4 years and a bunch of updates, it's kind of fun to play for $20 if your expectations are properly managed. Let's see. In other PC news, Steam has finally renamed all of the Resident Evil games. It used to be that when you bought a Resident Evil game on Steam, it would have the English name / and then in all capital the Japanese name of the game. So it looked really weird in your library because it would say Resident Evil 2 / Biohazard RE2. And Steam has gone through and edited them all so that they're basically just Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. So,
okay.
Bloodborne is coming to the PC. So for everybody...
Is it?
All but yes. At this point, pretty much all but yes. There's a lot of evidence pointing to the fact that, yes, it's coming from fairly trusted leakers. And with Horizon Zero Dawn already getting a PC release, this is, I don't know. It seems like this is kind of a no-brainer. You could look into the details, but a lot of people like this Nibble, this
Rebellion, yeah,
person on Twitter, they've been pretty solid with their leaks. So
I guess I wonder why. Like, we have definitely seen over the past 2 years where Sony's first party and second party games have come to PC, and they've just been laissez-faire in like, it's not a huge promotion about it. It's like the Quantic Dream stuff is now on Epic, and Horizon Zero Dawn is coming. So I wonder if just because the Demon Souls thing in this presentation needs its own space, if it doesn't want to get cluttered, because if part of this is that Bloodborne is coming to PS5 as well, you would think that would also be a big deal, a big to do, because Bloodborne, to hear folks like Jeff say, is the best of all of these Souls games. You would think that would also be a big selling point, unless you need there to be room between Demon Souls and this Bloodborne remake.
My thoughts are that I think that Sony has realized that Bloodborne is kind of like, at this point, there are two other From Software things that are more exciting. Like, you get more excitement out of a Demon Souls remaster, and if they were going to show something else from Software, I think it would be Elden Ring, which would have been a big get, because that's the next one that George R.R. Martin and Miyazaki are making. It's basically the next thing.
Are they still making that?
Yeah. I mean, they haven't shown anything for it, but I don't know. Apparently, if you ever want a hoot, you can always go over to the Elden Ring subreddit, where people have been waiting for so long that they've just started to make up lore for Elden Ring and then analyze it, because there is nothing to talk about.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Let's see. All right. These are things that would require going into more details, but we don't have the time for that. Sony was fined $2.4 million in Australia for their refund policy on the PlayStation Store. And this is because Australia has very specific laws about, like, if you want a refund, you get a refund. And you can't just say, well, we're Sony and we don't believe in refunds. And they say, well, we're Australia and we do. I put this in here because I am a huge fan, and I believe that in refunds, and I believe that every game company should accept video games back if they're bad, and that would stop developers from sneaking shitty games to us. Like, if Battlefront 2 was returned in the quantities that it was complained about online, that would have really messed up EA and made them think twice about trying to pull some crap like that again, like with NBA 2K20.
And like, the EU has very similar laws. It is bizarre that Sony would let this happen to the point where they get fined by the Australia government. Like, they know to handle this stuff. They know to have policies for this thing. Mm-hmm. This is unacceptable. Like, there's, yeah.
Yep. Also unacceptable is apparently Bobby Kotick's paycheck. A lot of this is such a strange company, but there's a filing with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission by two proxy voting advisory firms, basically saying that Activision should not be able to set Bobby Kotick's pay compensation. Apparently, he's getting about $20 million a year, and the shareholders believe that this is, like, ridiculous. The response, which I didn't actually realize, is that during the time that Bobby Kotick has been running Activision, their market capitalization has increased from $10 million to over $53 billion in the 10 years that he's been basically at the helm. So,
well, and that's not, I mean, that's market cap. That's not exactly revenue or profits, right? Like, they bought Blizzard over his tenure. So, like, there are a lot of acquisitions that are going to make their value go up, but I'm sure the investors are looking at net revenues and profits instead.
Yep. I don't think anybody should make $20 million for any reason ever, but that's just me. I don't know anything about.
Only if you win the lottery.
Markets.
You're allowed to win to get millions of dollars from the lottery. That's it.
Yes. Let's see. EA, in light of all of the protesting and COVID and everything that's going on, has pushed back their EA Play event by a week. It was supposed to be this week, and it is now going to be next week. So June 18th. Yep.
All right.
This is
See The Sims a little later. That's fine.
This is a weird one. Apparently, that Ubisoft game, Gods and Monsters, that they announced, went live on Stadia as a dev build for 30 minutes, as if Stadia needed more bad press.
That's how you get people on Stadia. Just let them play games that aren't out yet.
Yeah. Apparently, it went public, and it was called. God, what is it? Orpheus, yes. And for 30 minutes, people were able to play this weird dev build. Why was this even anywhere near Stadia? I don't know. I have no idea.
I bet you have to. I'm sure you have to upload your build to Stadia to test it. And someone clicked the wrong button, and they hit the admin console, and they published it instead of unlisted it or something. I don't know. That's so funny.
Best thing that's happened to Stadia so far. Let's see. I don't need to talk more about trailers. Hardspace Shipbreaker looks great, and I want to play it. It comes out next week, or it goes into early access next week.
That looks cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we got a few other, quote unquote, not E3 trailers from the whole Summer of Gaming thing. A lot of them were kind of boo. I like this Void Train one where you apparently have to build a train to alternate realities and then defend it against alternate reality monsters. Did you watch this trailer, Bryce?
I did. I like the idea of building a train and you're dealing with all this anti-gravity stuff as your train flies through the sky and shit. I don't know that I really care about leaving and going on foot and there's too many different things on this, and there are too many things for how not compelling it is. I think it looks cool. Maybe it's a whole thing, but trains, okay, train, whatever.
Okay. Let's see. We're gonna skip that. We're gonna go 13. The old PlayStation 2 cell shaded first person shooter game is getting a remaster, and it got a new trailer. This game is very fondly remembered by a lot of people, not really by me, but
this game doesn't. This remake doesn't look cell shaded. His hands are kind of cell shaded, but they've given it a more traditional shader, and it makes it for a game where one of the cards on the trailer says the innovative cell shaded first person shooter. It doesn't look very cell shaded to me.
Yeah.
I mean, am I crazy?
No.
Am I looking at low resolution?
No, I think that a lot of it is actually the reverse of that. It's that when you put the character models into high resolution and then put a black line around them, you barely see the black line because of the higher resolution. And I think that if I remember correctly, in the PS2 version, it was always this way, where the environments were a little bit more realistically modeled and the characters were more of the cell shaded 3D. But it's not really coming through. Also, in this trailer, the voice actor for the protagonist sounded supremely uninterested in what was happening.
He's so fucking bored. My mental anguish is bad. What? Were those the original recordings?
I think they might be. I think they might be.
I hope so, because fuck, man.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Anyway, we'll find out because we finally have a release date of November 10th. We're still waiting to see Ubisoft's Ubisoft Forward, which is happening in July, which is their kind of E3, but not E3, but yes, E3. And there's been a question of they had a bunch of things at their last earnings report: Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Rainbow Six Quarantine, Watchdog Legion, and then unannounced Ubisoft game. And there is a rumor that that's going to be Far Cry 6, which is supremely disappointing to me as somebody who keeps holding up their lighter at the end of the show and saying, bring out Sam Fisher, I want another Splinter Cell game, god damn it.
No, no, man. Far Cry 6, the calendar, you look at the calendar and that makes sense. I do wonder, because we saw I know we saw Watch Dogs Legion get pushed back by a lot. And was Rainbow Six Quarantine also pushed back? Like they pushed back a bunch of games because they had, what was the online, like the Division 2 and the other Rainbow Six game,
Ghost Recon, Breakpoint,
Ghost Recon come out, and they had come out so recently to everything else that they did not do well, and Ubisoft pushed all of their other upcoming releases to make sure they, quote, looked different from the games before them, which is just a very funny thing to think about a corporation having to say. So I don't know what you do for a Far Cry 6. I think even if we see it, it might be 12 months away. So
you want to swing wide on location?
Ooh,
we've had Nepal,
location.
Tropical Island, and Middle America. It's probably not America. What do you think? Eastern Europe? Far Cry 2 was Africa.
Yeah, Far Cry 2 being in Africa is the only reason I would think not. I could see like Mexico or kind of a very desert heavy space where you kind of mix the forest and the desert and some urban space. I could see something like that.
Okay. Yeah, they did South America in Breakpoint, and they did City in Division. Yeah. So
yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. I'm about ready to give up on Ubisoft. Dark Pictures Anthology, Little Hope got pushed back. This was the supermassive Dark Pictures. We did Man of Medan from last year. This is the next one that was all about witches. But it looks like the COVID has pushed it back a little bit. And yeah. And last...
This was this was an anthology series that they're doing, but this was not episodic, right?
Yes, each one was its own game, and then they weren't, at least from... Okay, they're connected, but they're connected by like a... there's like a narrator.
Yeah. The TV guy, right?
Yeah, there's a guy with the book at the very beginning that talks about it. So I thought Man of Medan was really good, and it was like $30, which I'm fine for a 3-4 hour adventure that you play once or twice. So, and then I'm going to make this the last thing because we have to get going. If you are looking for a good deal and you would like to support a good cause, itch.io has this huge bundle with proceeds going to Black Lives Matter and racial justice causes. The minimum donation is $5. They've already raised $5.6 million of their $5 million goal. Bryce, have you looked through this? There are so many games in here that are so good. Night in the Woods, Overland, Celeste, Art School, just some kind of crazy stuff. Night of the Consumers, 2064 Read-Only Memories, One Night Stand. They've added a lot more to this. Tonight We Riot. I mean, I'm so mad because I paid $10 for just about every game on this list. Wheels of Aurelia, Wide Ocean Big Jacket, Nuclear Throne, Piku Niku. There's just so much on here. And if you go to itch.io, it's like the first thing, or it's not the first thing, but if on the very front page, it's right in the middle, Bundle for Racial Justice and Equality, and it's full of all kinds of good stuff. So
there are a lot of like good size like indie games that any individual one justifies the $5 minimum price tag. But I went through all of them for my email list, and I just wrote a little bit about all the ones I had even heard of. But there's a lot of really interesting little ideas in there for games that I'm excited to try out. And it's not just video games. There's some tabletop games. There's like some productivity software. There's a lot of game assets. If you are into game development, there's a lot of game assets in there. I think this is like really cool stuff. Like even like weirder stuff like Heavy Bullets is like in there for some reason. Octodad is hidden in there. Oxenfree, Headliner, Super Hexagon is in there. Just like, yeah, why not? Just throw Super Hexagon in there. Like this is really cool, and I'm glad that it's raised a lot of money for the protesters.
Yeah. Yep. And with that, we're done. This is the biggest podcast of all time. Bryce, tell the people where they can find you on the internet.
You can find me on Twitter at Brycas, Brycas, and I have a video game newsletter called Video Games with Bryce. It comes out about once a week. If you'd like to sign up, it's free. Go to my personal website, neshcom.com. That's neshcom.com. It's right there on the front page.
Okay. And mail at rageslide.com is the email address you can send in the questions that we normally answer when it isn't a week with just way too much stuff. Send them in. We will answer. Thanks for listening. I hope that you all get your PlayStation 5s. Bye!